You're not doing badly, exactly. You just feel like you're working harder than the results suggest you should be. The home is fine, mostly, except for the counter and the pile and the bathroom that needs doing again. The money is fine, mostly, except you checked your account last week and the number was lower than you expected it to be. Again, with no single big purchase to explain it. You're sleeping enough hours, probably, except you wake up tired more mornings than you don't. The friendships are fine, except you've been meaning to message her for 3 weeks and somehow haven't. The days are full, the energy isn't. This is the specific, low-grade friction of a modern life that isn't broken but isn't quite working. A life where nothing is dramatically wrong, and yet everything costs slightly more effort than it should. Where the baseline is fine, but never quite good. Where you end most days feeling like you've been doing a lot without really getting anywhere. Here's what nobody tells you about that feeling. It isn't one problem, it's 8 small structural gaps, each one costing a small amount of energy, each one invisible on its own, all of them running simultaneously in the background. And the reason it feels impossible to fix is that you've been looking for one solution to what is actually 8 separate, solvable problems. The Japanese have a word for the kind of improvement that doesn't require dramatic overhaul, Kaizen. And across 8 specific areas of daily life, there are 8 specific, simple habits, each one from a different corner of Japanese philosophy, that quietly close those 8 gaps. Not all at once, just one at a time. Starting today, these aren't complicated habits. They don't require a personality change, a complete lifestyle overhaul, or the kind of discipline that sounds good in theory and collapses by Thursday. They're structural. Each one changes the conditions under which you live slightly, the same way a small adjustment to a door hinge makes the whole door swing differently, rather than asking you to push harder against the same resistant door. 8 habits, 8 areas, 15 minutes each, at most. The life that results isn't dramatically different from the outside. From the inside, it's a completely different experience. Habit 1. Danshari. Own less than you think you need. The single most underestimated source of daily friction in most homes isn't dirt, it's stuff. Every object that doesn't have a clear, regularly used place in your home is quietly taxing you. It needs moving, dusting, organizing, accounting for, every single time you try to clean. Every single time you look for something else. The tax is small per object. Accumulated across everything in a home that doesn't earn its keep, it's substantial. Danshari, the Japanese philosophy of refusing what doesn't serve you before it enters your home, disposing of what has stopped serving you, and separating yourself from the belief that more is safer, isn't about owning as little as possible. It's about owning only what actually pulls its weight. The test is simple. Does this object get used regularly, or does it get stored indefinitely and moved aside when I need to reach something else? Everything that fails that test is, in cleaning terms, a net liability. It will cost you more time across its lifetime in your home than it will ever save you. The takeaway: before anything new enters your home this week, ask honestly whether it earns its space. That single filter, applied consistently, is the most powerful home habit available. Not because it makes cleaning faster, but because it makes cleaning largely unnecessary. Habit 2. Hara Hachi Bu. Stop at 80%. Translated literally, eat until you are 8 parts full out of 10. The biology behind this is simpler than most eating advice ever acknowledges. The body's fullness signal takes approximately 15 to 20 minutes to travel from the stomach to the brain. Every meal eaten to the point of feeling full has, by biological necessity, already overshot. The comfortable, satisfied feeling arrives 15 minutes after the point where you were actually full, which means eating to fullness. Every meal, every day, consistently overshoots by 15 minutes worth of food. Hara Hachi Bu doesn't ask you to restrict. It asks you to pause slightly before the fullness signal arrives, trusting that the signal will follow. The Okinawan populations who practice this habitually are among the longest-lived people on Earth, not because they eat special foods, but because they consistently stop slightly before full, which removes the low-grade systemic inflammation that consistent overeating produces. The takeaway: at your next meal, eat at roughly 70% of your usual pace, and stop when you think you might be around 8 parts full. Don't wait for the feeling. Sit for 15 minutes. Notice what arrives. Habit 3. Kakeibo. Write it down before you spend it. Kakeibo is a Japanese household budgeting method, but the translation budgeting misses the actual mechanism. which has nothing to do with spreadsheets or apps. It's a handwritten practice. At the start of each month, you write down your income, your fixed expenses, and a savings goal. Each week, you write down what you actually spent. At the end of the month, you answer 4 questions in your own handwriting. How much did I have? How much did I spend? How much did I save? How can I improve? The handwriting is the mechanism. Digital tracking removes the felt awareness from spending. It happens passively, in the background, producing data without producing consciousness. Writing spending down by hand forces a brief, real engagement with each transaction. Not guilt, just noticing. And noticing, it turns out, changes behavior more reliably than any app ever designed to track the same data. The takeaway: get a small notebook. Write this month's income at the top. Write your fixed expenses below it. Write a savings number you want to reach. Each Sunday, write what you actually spent. 4 weeks of this changes the relationship with money more than any budgeting system available. Habit 4. Ma. Leave space in your day. Ma is the Japanese concept of intentional empty space, and in its most practical application, it isn't about rooms or shelves. It's about time. A day scheduled to full capacity has no room for the unexpected, the slow, or the restorative. Every task bleeds into the next. Every delay creates a cascade. Every moment of rest feels stolen from something else. The day finishes, technically completed, with a specific kind of exhaustion that sleep doesn't fully fix, because the depletion was cognitive, not physical. The Japanese concept of ma, applied to time, isn't about doing less. It's about deliberately scheduling nothing into specific windows. Not rest, exactly, just openness. So the day has breathing room built into its structure, rather than relying on things going perfectly to create it. The takeaway: look at tomorrow's schedule. Find one 30-minute window that is currently occupied by a task that could be moved. Move it. Leave that window empty, with full permission to do nothing productive in it. Notice whether the rest of the day functions differently when it has one moment of unscheduled space inside it. Habit 5. Kaizen. Get 1% better at one thing. Kaizen, the Japanese philosophy of continuous improvement, is most often applied to manufacturing, but its most powerful daily application is personal, the commitment to improving one specific thing by 1%, rather than attempting a dramatic transformation of many things at once. 1% is almost imperceptibly small. 1% better at sleeping means going to bed 5 minutes earlier. 1% better at eating means leaving 3 bites on the plate. 1% better at the thing you've been avoiding means starting it for 60 seconds. The changes are so small they don't feel like change, which means they don't trigger the resistance that larger changes always produce. But 1%, compounded daily, produces a fundamentally different outcome over months. Not because the math is dramatic. It isn't at first, but because small, consistent improvements sustain in a way that dramatic ones almost never do. The habit that's still running in 6 months is the habit that changed the outcome. The dramatic overhaul that lasted 2 weeks changed nothing. The takeaway: identify one specific area of your life that you want to improve. Not the whole area, one specific behavior within it. Make it 1% better today. Tomorrow, make it 1% better again. Don't announce it, don't track it publicly, just do it, and check back in a month. Habit 6. Ofuro. Make the evening bath a nervous system event. The Japanese evening bath ritual, Ofuro, is the most consistently misunderstood Japanese wellness practice in the West. It's described as relaxing, as self-care, as a luxurious addition to an evening routine. All of these framings miss the point. Ofuro is a nervous system tool. A 15 to 20-minute soak in water at approximately 40 degrees Celsius activates the body's parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest system, the biological opposite of the stress response, which produces 2 specific downstream effects: genuinely improved sleep quality and improved skin barrier repair during sleep. These aren't mood effects, they're physiological. The warm water signals the body's threat detection system to stand down, which produces the kind of sleep that actually repairs and restores, rather than merely passing the hours unconscious. The takeaway: 3 evenings this week, run a bath before bed. Not a long shower, a bath. 15 minutes minimum, warm enough to feel the temperature but not so hot it's uncomfortable. Phone outside the room. Notice the quality of your sleep on those 3 nights compared to the others. Habit 7. Kizuna. Send the message you've been meaning to send. Kizuna, The Japanese concept of human bonds carries an implication that English translations consistently miss. Bonds are living things. They don't maintain themselves. They require small, regular inputs of attention to stay warm, not grand gestures, not full catch-up conversations, just the small, consistent signal that the other person crossed your mind. The friendships that survive years of distance and busyness aren't necessarily the deepest ones. They're the ones where someone, somewhere, maintained a small and consistent habit of showing up in a minor key, a shared link, a one-line message, a photo of something that made them think of the other person, often enough that the connection stayed warm between the bigger moments. The cultural calendar of Japanese gift-giving and seasonal greeting practices, Nengaju New Year cards, Okugen, and Osebo seasonal gifts, Shoku Mimai summer greetings, creates a structured, recurring reminder to tend bonds before they go cold. The Western equivalent isn't seasonal gifts. It's a small recurring reminder to reach out before the gap gets wide enough to feel like it needs bridging. The takeaway: think of one person you've been meaning to message, not to catch up, just to send the thing you almost sent 3 weeks ago. One message, no expectation of a response, sent today. That's the whole habit. Habit 8. Ikigai. Do one energizing thing per day. Ikigai is most commonly translated as reason for being, a grand, life purpose concept that tends to feel overwhelming when applied practically. But its daily application is smaller and more immediately useful. The idea that doing at least one genuinely energizing thing per day, not relaxing, not productive, but something that actually generates energy rather than consuming it, prevents the cumulative depletion that makes every subsequent task harder. The distinction between relaxing and energizing is important and consistently overlooked. Watching a show is relaxing. It stops the drain temporarily. Doing something you're genuinely curious about or creatively engaged with is energizing. It actively refills. A life composed entirely of work and relaxation has no input of genuine energy, which means it runs slowly toward depletion, regardless of how much sleep it gets. The Japanese tradition of kodawari, deep, committed engagement with a personal craft or interest for its own sake, is one expression of this. The craft doesn't need to be profitable or shareable or impressive. It needs to be something you do, because the doing itself produces more energy than it consumes. The takeaway: identify one genuinely energizing activity, something you've been doing less of than you'd like, or something you've been meaning to start. Build 15 minutes of it into tomorrow, not as a reward or an earned break, as a structural daily input, as necessary as sleep. 8 habits. 8 small structural adjustments to 8 different areas of a life that wasn't broken, just running slightly harder than it needed to. None of them are dramatic. None of them require a different personality, or a more disciplined version of yourself, or a week of perfect conditions to get started. They require a slightly different relationship with the structure underneath your daily life, the conditions under which you live, rather than a heroic increase in the effort you bring to the same unchanged conditions. The life that results, over weeks and months, isn't one you'd recognize from the outside. From the inside, it's the difference between a day that costs you and a day that returns something, between a home that accumulates and one that rests, between an evening that drains and one that actually restores. Danshari, Hara Hachi Bu, Kakeibo, Kaizen, Ofuro, Kizuna, Ikigai. 8 words, 8 habits, one life that works slightly better in 8 small ways every single day. If this felt like something your life needed to hear, there's more waiting for you here.